Okay, so I decided I need to do another video, get some stuff off of my chest. We're going to be playing some Balatro here in the background, sped up ×2. Really fun, relaxing card game, which of course is the exact opposite mood of how I felt earlier today. So let me explain some stuff. I currently am a gig worker, so I do deliveries for a few different apps. One of the main apps that I work for is Instacart. And that's one I've done longest out of all the ones that I've done. And it is one of my biggest money makers. And so today I decided I would get up early this morning, make the trip over to Costco, of course, and do some deliveries. Did one delivery, no problems at the local Costco, except there was this weird issue where the pork chops that the customer got for some reason rang up as a single pineapple at the register. It wasn't my mistake at all. I don't have any idea how that could have happened because there was absolutely no produce in the order even, but somehow the register scanned pineapple and it asked me, hey, what's up with this pineapple you got in the order? And so, I had to fill out the little questionnaire because I don't know, I was completely blown away, but sure enough, it did say pineapple on the receipt, even though I didn't get that and didn't show the freaking pork chops. So I guess some money's going to get lost from somebody. I don't know. But anyways, that's not really what it's about. It's about the delivery that happened afterwards, which started off pretty smoothly. Of course, the actual shopping trip went just fine. But when it came to the checkout, there was a minor little mistake that I made that only took a few seconds and it ended up costing me more than 45 minutes of my time. Exactly how could something like that happen? Well, let me explain. So basically, whenever we get to the register, we have to scan a QR code for each person that we're shopping for their membership redemption. And I made the unfortunate mistake of not proceeding to the next screen for the second customer for their barcode to be scanned. Now, if you've ever done Instacart and have done this with Costco, you probably know the feeling. But if you don't know anything about that at all, let me explain here. So essentially, you have to scan each membership barcode in the order that you ring up the orders in order to have that tied to the purchases, which I honestly don't know why that has to be done necessarily. It's probably some antiquated crap, that isn't necessary because they already have the membership details whenever they place the order through Instacart. Although maybe they might not have, they could have placed it directly for the Costco website, which maybe that's the reason why they do that. But I digress. I made a mistake. I screwed up. But this is something that I've done before and have been able to get fixed. But for some reason today, it was quite a different story. Whenever I went out to after I got everything rang up and all that, I began to leave the store and I went over to the merchandise return area, which is how we were supposed to handle this before. If we have this kind of incident, we're supposed to basically return the merchandise of the customer's information. Like basically, there was 3 different customers that I was shopping for. The first order, I scanned their barcode just fine. The second order is the one that shared the same barcode as the first when it should have scanned that one independently. And then the third one had its own barcode, which that one was scanned fine, and that one was fine too. So what I had to do essentially was I had to go to the service desk. I had to take their second receipt, which had that first barcode that was mistakenly scanned instead of the second barcode, which was supposed to be scanned, and get that merchandise refunded. And then go to a different register to get that ring up under the correct barcode. But they were trying to give me this whole runaround about how, we can't do returns for Instacart. That's not something that we can do, which, obviously it was something that they've done before in the past. I've had this happen twice, I want to say, before, and it had never been an issue. I don't know if it's some kind of change with their policy or what the case is, but they couldn't do that. Of course, they had to do a void transaction is what they said, where they would have to basically just eliminate the transaction entirely, and then we would ring up the transaction. And we went through that process, and lo and behold, that did not actually work. This was actually pretty frustrating because, the way that it worked, we have to swipe a card. We get a prepaid card, essentially, from Instacart, which is what we use to pay for customers' orders. And you swipe that card. Sometimes it'll be ran by credit. Sometimes it'll be ran by debit, and you have a PIN number, which it presents you within the app in order to complete the purchase. The problem with the void system that Costco has is it only works through credit, but the Instacart card has to work through debit. So this was quite a conundrum because whenever you swipe that card at a Costco store, it cannot be ran as credit. It has to be ran as debit. So this was really kind of peeving me off. So during this whole time, I was on the online chat support with Instacart, trying to get this all sorted out with them. And, essentially, eventually, we couldn't figure out a solution with it. So I was like, well, this really sucks. Because whenever I do Instacart, I like doing Instacart through the Costco stores because they tend to be some of the better paying orders. They are a little more work than a traditional grocery store order because the merchandise itself is bigger and, bigger quantity items. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've ever been to Costco or Sam's Club or something like that, which, by the way, if you've never been and you need to choose one or the other, definitely go Costco all the way. For every 9 things that Costco does right, Sam's Club does one thing, right, and vice versa. It's such a better shopping experience. I don't know. It's just so much better. I mean, Sam's Club is pretty much like the Dollar Tree of big box warehouse chains. And Walmart keeps trying, and they always keep falling short when it comes to that, And if you know when it comes to the Costco food court, so much better than Sam's Club. Not even close. But anyways, let's get back into the subject matter here. So I decided, you know what, screw it. I'll just go ahead and take these deliveries. And then the Instacart support gave me this other set of instructions to try to follow. And I was like, okay, you know what? I got in the other customers' merchandise in my car, the stuff that wasn't at all relevant to this. I went ahead and got that in my car, locked it up, went back into the store, and we decided to do a round 2, trying to get this done. And I talked to the, the representative there at Costco and explained what was going on. And we tried through that. And again, we were experiencing problems. And this is what was really interesting. The Costco representative, they looked at the receipt and they noticed that the membership number was different. So we thought that was pretty unusual. There was another thing that was actually very unusual as well, which this is something that I had to figure out. Nobody else. There was like 3 different Costco associates working with me on this here. And I was the one that actually came to this realization because for whatever reason, whenever they were trying to do the refund transaction, the subtotal ended up being higher when they were doing the refunds than whenever I originally rang up that transaction at the register, which makes absolutely no sense. It kind of makes me think, oh shit, are we in dynamic pricing now? Do we have dynamic pricing? So here's what actually happened. It turns out that with that particular transaction, the 2 different customers, they were in different areas. So they had different not area codes, but different zip codes essentially, which means that they were subject to different local regulations. They were in different towns essentially. And turns out there was a slight difference in the overall local taxes between those 2 areas. And that, because of that being tied to their Costco membership, is why the prices were different. Which, that is quite wild. I don't know if that's because of the fact that they're running a membership through Costco, and that's why it's tied that way. But I was the one that actually figured that out. I've done over 5,000 different orders for Instacart, and I never knew this. It kind of makes sense, though, I suppose, because sometimes I have to do deliveries across the river to Illinois, and I'm sure they have different taxes and whatnot. That could be another reason. It's kind of weird because most of the time you go to a retail store, whenever you are ringing up your stuff, the taxes are based on the actual city that you're buying the merchandise from. But Costco, because I guess they tie it through the customer's membership, does it differently. Now, I'm not sure if Sam's Club might do the same thing or not. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I'll have to actually take a look at some of that information on the receipt and whatnot. But I thought that was really interesting. So what we had to do essentially is the barcode that Instacart was giving me was for that second customer's barcode, the one that was not originally scanned. And whenever I discovered this whole local tax thing, that's when we discovered that they were giving us the wrong barcode. So I decided, okay, so I'm going to go back to the original barcode. Fortunately, I hadn't started the delivery phase yet. I wouldn't have access to the barcodes otherwise if I hadn't. And so I went through that, and after all of that effort, doing everything exactly as both the Costco and the Instacart steps were to try to address this problem, even after all of that, it still was messed up. However, there was something very interesting. I don't know how this is going to affect things, but technically we did end up getting that second barcode scanned and getting everything resolved in a very roundabout way that was absolutely wild. So it turns out the Costco cashier that was ringing up the order, this is a person I've interacted with several times, and they seems like they're always in a hurry, which I guess makes sense. I don't know if you've ever been to a store like Costco, but the cashiers, they're kind of like slam bam, in and out. They are definitely a little more overconfident and uppity than like an average cashier. Like you go to just your local grocery store or you go to Walmart or something like that. You know, it's usually pretty standard fare. Aldi, they're very fast paced at Aldi, without a doubt, but they still have a pretty friendly demeanor at the same time. So it's just like a normal grocery store, except they're just flinging the shit in your cart, you know, unless it's like eggs or bread, of course. But they're still pretty friendly. Costco, I've had many good cashiers. I won't lie, but it just seems like there's, I don't know if it's because of how strict they are with their cashiers, which kind of makes sense because unlike a lot of the stores, they actually pay them really good. So it incentivizes them to actually do the job to the best of their abilities as quickly as possible. And perhaps it gives them a little bit of ego, I guess. I don't know. But here's what happened. It turns out there was one single item that she did not even scan in the cart, even though I had all the barcodes pointed up or anything like that. I know exactly how this whole Costco thing is supposed to go. I come prepared when it's time to check out. I've probably done hundreds of orders at the local Costco. And what we had to do essentially was we rang up that single item. It was a case of Capri Sun, you know, those little juice pouches that you give the little kids. You got to stab it with the really sharp, the real sharp straw, which I'm surprised they still have those. You figure in the year 2026, somebody would have poked their eyes out and caused bleeding of the eye and everything like that because of the stupid straw, because like the kid didn't know what they were doing or whatever. You figure that would have happened, but well, fortunately that's not the case. You know, they still have the stabby straws. But we went ahead and rang up that one item which hadn't been paid for and scanned that second barcode, and I was able to finally proceed with the deliveries almost a whole hour after I was supposed to leave the store. Fortunately, everybody was cool, but man, it really kind of took the wind out of my sails today. I was really planning on making some good money. And instead I just had to cut it out for the day, man. I had a really rough day at work and it really sucks, but overall I still like this kind of work. It suits me very well. I'm not a person that really sticks well with very structured schedules, and I do an even worse job when the schedule hops around and they make you come in at different hours, at different days, and all this other garbage. I really like the flexibility of this type of work, and I can work upon my own schedule. So if I have a day where I'm not feeling good, I don't have to work or anything like that. Or, if I feel like high energy and I'm ready to go, I can crank out a 10, 12-hour day and make some good money and, be a little worn out for the day, but, being very satisfied, very accomplished for what I've done for the day. And, I really hope this incident doesn't cause me some issues that's going to affect my account or anything like that. But these companies, they really need to figure out these policies. They really need to have a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flexibility when there are issues like that. Because yes, I committed an issue, but because of the fact that I committed an issue, it turns out they didn't even bring up the dang Capri Sun with the stabby straws. So be careful out there if you drink Capri Sun, especially if you have little kids. You got to do the little stabby action for yourself with them little straws so they don't accidentally stab their eyes out. And I guess that's all I've got to say. I really appreciate you guys listening to me rant and rave and everything like that. This was quite a wild story and I just had to get this off my chest. So thank you very much for watching.